page 23, final reading of Senate Bill 1171, House Draft 2, relating to the review of historic preservation projects.
Is there any discussion? If not, can we have unanimous Senator Reed?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm advising opposition on this motion.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. As all of you are well aware, I have spoken passionately in opposition to this measure since its introduction. I would like to point out what I believe to be misunderstandings, in the least, and flat-out ignorance on what this bill does. As we have heard in caucus, this bill allegedly codifies the federal law that allegedly allows for phasing. I would challenge anyone in support of this bill to get up after me and cite the federal law. I challenge you, because there is no federal law. There is no federal law. I invite the individual in support to stand after me and cite the federal law. That's point number one. In his testimony before the respective committees, the Department of Transportation justified the passage of this proposal because, and I quote, Senate Bill 1171 will make Hawaii law consistent with the National Historic Preservation Act, Section 106, 36 CFR Section 800.4, paren B, paren 2, paren 2010. DOT went on to say this bill would make state historic preservation laws consistent with federal historic preservation laws. I challenge the individual who will stand up next in support of this bill to defend that position. The fact is, Senate Bill 1171 will not bring any consistency between federal and state historic preservation laws. The Department of Transportation is confused in its definition of the terms statute, law, regulations, and rules. And like burnt maple syrup, they have poured it on each of us. A statute or law is an act of the legislature that declares, prescribes, or commands. A regulation or rule describes how the statute or law will be implemented. In this case, the applicable federal statute cited is Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, which says in its entirety, Section 106, Advisory Council on Historic Preservation, comment on federal undertakings. The head of any federal agency having direct or indirect jurisdiction over a proposed federal or federally assisted undertaking in any state, and the head of any federal department or independent agency having authority to license any undertaking shall, prior to the approval of the expenditure of any federal funds on the undertaking or prior to the issuance of any license, as the case may be, take into account the effect of the undertaking on any district, any site, any building, any structure, or any object that is included or eligible for inclusion in the National Register. The head of any such federal agency shall afford the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation established under Title II of this Act a reasonable opportunity to comment with regard to such undertaking. The federal statute says nothing, zero, only, squat, about phase reviews. Nothing, only, zero, squat. Or that, for that matter, phasing of any kind. That language is found only within a much more detailed implementing regulations for Section 106 at 36 Code of Federal Regulations, Part 800. You may check it for yourself. And the presumption is the person who stands in support after me has done so, because he will be asked by me. Unless Congress is planning to amend Section 106 of the NHPA, passage of this bill will not make state law consistent with federal law, because phasing does not exist in federal law. To say that DOT is confused is to be kind. This is nothing more than a taking by the state executive in response to the Supreme Court decision entitled Kaleki. That's all it is. You can fluff it up any which way you want. If it quacks, it's a done. And this is a done. When the Supreme Court's ruling on Kaleki was handed down in August 2012. August 2012. The executive branch of this government could have and should have immediately begun to amend the existing administrative rules at Hawaii Administrative Rules 13-275 and 13-284. Had they done so expeditiously, it is highly likely that the necessary amendments would be in place by now, allowing for phased project reviews that the DOT alleges it needs. Instead, the executive branch inexplicably delayed taking action, any action, until the beginning of this session. And SB 1171 is the disingenuous action taken by the executive to suggest that phasing is necessary when it is not. The fact of the matter is, no matter what anybody says, that's not done. This legislation is not necessary. The rules under Hawaii Administrative Rules provides the Department of Transportation with all necessary rulemaking authority. And if somebody can tell me differently, I'm here. You know, when I started this on this bill. I thought we'd have a discussion about the Aina Iwi Kupuna. It's not about that. That's only the reason we shouldn't do it. What it's about is being led to believe that this is so critical that highways cannot be built. That's not true. And I just explained why. So critical that this bill is so broad, so vague, that this allows for private developers to move forward. This is not about highways. This is about everything. That broad, that vague, and so when this can be done. So when the water bucket is delivered to us. If not for people like Sarah Collins, most of you know Sarah, you've been around long enough to weigh in on the distinguishments of the law. We'll be flying this bill through because without it, cannot build highways. No. Hawaii's administrative rules. O'oi ke kai kia aina. Hana oi. Get your work done. I thought I'd use this bill as an attack on our culture, an attack on the host culture. It's not necessary. It's not necessary. We could be in Yapana. And if the rules existed there as they do here, we wouldn't have to talk about the heat, because it's not necessary. It's only another example of the erosion of the whole culture which politicians use every time they want to. Thank you, Madam President. This bill is as inappropriate as it is for us to use words like aloha, to use a word like porno. I wonder, this is not porno, and this is not aloha. This is not necessary. And so the next person who stands up in support, I would ask you, as you go about supporting the bill, to respond to the federal law. Respond to the federal law. Because when you do so, the Society of Hawaiian Archaeology is going to learn something. I have a hunch that I'm going to use my second time to stand up shortly. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm obviously in support of this measure. Madam President, supporters would like you to believe that this bill will give the state a license to rule those important historical or cultural sites. But really, nothing could be further from the truth. The truth is, this measure makes only two procedural changes. First, it provides a specific provision in state law that authorizes the making of certain projects by shifting to ensure consistency between state and federal law. There are no exemptions. This bill does not circumvent Chapter 6E, the state's historic preservation law. All required archaeological inventory studies will be completed, and any necessary mitigation must be done before construction begins. And secondly, it simply removes the redundancy in agency appeals by deleting language providing the governor with the option to request a second study by the Hawaii Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. And the previous speaker asked me to cite the law, the federal law, that makes these words and things in conflict. And then cite the National Historic Preservation Act, Section 106, and the part that I feel is pertinent here, it states, quote, phase identification and evaluation for alternatives under consideration consistent corridors or large land areas, or where access to properties is restricted, agency officially may use a phased process to conduct identification and evaluation efforts. So we're both reading the same statutes, but obviously having very different interpretations. And I argue that this clearly, the federal law allows for phasing, and we're simply making the laws locally in congruence with that. And in the Clay Key versus Yoshioka ruling on page 65, footnote 33, the court suggested that Shitty amend its rules so the state laws would be consistent with the federal law in the National Historic Preservation Act. And that is exactly what the justices recommended and exactly what we're about to do this morning. For decades, it has been a common practice to build projects in phases. This bill simply puts that practice in statute. If the state had a sketchy track record of desecrated historical sites, there may be reason for us to pause. But the opposite is true. The state has been an excellent steward of the land and has a record of preserving important cultural sites. Here's an example of projects that have been phased in around the state. On Oahu, Kahikili Highway, Kalaniʻole Highway, Farrington Highway. On the Big Island, Hawaii Road, Volcano Road, Kuakini Highway. On Maui, Haleakala Highway, Honopi'ilani Highway, Hana Highway. On Molokai, Kamehameha Highway, Mauna Loa Highway, Kalei Highway. On the Lani, Kaumala Papua, Kaumala Pa Highway. On Kauai, Kamualini Highway, and Gil Highway. It would be ideal because this would then hold our entire projects once they're approved. But the reality is that funding of federal projects rolled in over several years. Sometimes we don't all own all the land we need to develop in the beginning, so we need to develop in managed sites or phases. If this bill is not passed, there will be delays in construction of new facilities or master planned projects. Just this morning, the Attorney General indicated there is a likelihood that projects already in the pipeline could wind up back in court. On your desk, you have a list of potential projects that could stop in its tracks very soon, if there is further litigation. And all of these roads are highways that are coming to a neighborhood near each and every one of you. And it's not just transportation projects, as the previous speaker had mentioned. It includes renewable energy, agricultural projects, and school expansion. The Department of Hawaiian Homelands has had master plan communities phased in. DBED's efforts to expand broadband, geothermal, seawater air conditioning would all be happening. Even the Office of Hawaiian Affairs would like to have to phase in their master plan with their 25 acres in Ka'ako that was given to them last year. They don't have the money to do an entire plan all at once. Some opponents argue that doing archaeological inventory survey and start an entire project could alleviate problems down the road if the project has to be directed in the subsequent phase. If we are going to contemplate hypothetical situations, I could also argue that comprehensive AIS at the start could cause more problems and cost more money. All projects don't turn out as initially planned. The road could be realigned, or funding for a project could force developers to scale back their project. If you dig in an area that ultimately never gets developed, you just disturb remains that didn't need to be touched and put money into a study that was not useful. That is a waste of time and resources. A comprehensive EIS is the beginning of development doesn't guarantee there will be no problems later. An EIS is like hunting in the dark. You may hit your target, but oftentimes you come away empty-handed. This bill is not about being disrespectful. There are no exemptions. If a survey identifies any burial sites, the project comes to an immediate halt. This bill is about allowing progress to occur as it has for decades, and at the same time being very respectful of sacred sites around the island. I encourage my colleagues to vote yes. Thank you, Madam President.
Further discussion by the Senator Lee.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to raise 2 points. One, I rise in opposition to this bill. And I'd like to raise 2 points. The first, to address the comments that were just made by the Senator to my left, and the second, to add to the comments from the Senator from Honolulu. I heard the previous speaker mention that federal law does authorize phasing where the proposed project consists of corridors or large land areas where access to the properties is restricted. But this bill in front of us today adds a third category where it would allow a phased archaeological inventory survey where circumstances dictate that construction be done in stages. That's an extremely broad exemption to the existing practice. What does that mean? Is that going to apply to developments on relatively small footprints of land because the construction is done in stages, even when you can conduct an archaeological inventory survey relatively easily? Is that going to apply when private developers are developing areas where they're concerned that a portion of the land contains burials and they want to begin the phased archaeological inventory surveys in the regions that are less likely to contain burials of historic sites in order to get their preliminary approvals? This is an extremely broad exemption, and it sounds to me like that is nowhere in the federal law. So once again, we are having, similar to Senate Bill 1207, the Department of Transportation come in here and talk about a very broad-based exemption that is not necessary. And it's going to lead to a lot of consequences that I think many people in this room are going to regret. I want to add also to the remarks of the Senator from Kahului. Allowing a phased archaeological inventory survey is going to change the process by which the approvals are done. And I'm speaking as the former chair of the Department of Land and Natural Resources. Prior to project approval, if burials are found during an inventory survey, the determination on whether they should be removed or remain in place, the determination on the type of mitigation, the determination on the type of response is made by the burial councils. Once the project is approved, that determination is made by the State Historic Preservation Division. And I can tell you what will happen is if a phased AIS is allowed, a project is approved, and down the line, your survey comes about and something is found, and there's been a lot of money spent on a project, there's been construction that's been started, the pressure that is going to be placed on an administrative determination by the State Historic Preservation Division, they're going to be asked and pressured to consider the economic impacts of their decision. And they have reached a different decision than if that decision is made prior to the project approval by the burial councils. If we pass this bill, we are going to be changing not just the process, but who will be making the decisions. So I ask you to please consider that and oppose this measure. You can come back with a much narrower measure next year if it is necessary, or the department can engage in administrative rulemaking and go through a more thoughtful and lengthy process than we have the luxury of doing here during such a short session. Mahalo.
President, point of inquiry. Will you ask the Senate member from Salt Lake if he will yield to a question?
What is your question?
Question is, did the Hawaii Supreme Court suggest in the Kalei decision that the legislature changed the law or that Chipti amended amend its rules? And if the answer is the Supreme Court did not suggest the legislature change the law, but suggested that Shifty amend its rules, will you ask him if we are members of Shifty? Thank you.
Senator McCarthy, will you move to that question? Senator has declined to continue.
Then I rise in opposition.
Please proceed.
Yet again. I only do so to clarify reckless comments by the Senate member who spoke in support of this measure. He alleges that the state, in his remarks, when it came to the topic of desecration of the land, he stated, the state has been an excellent steward of the land. Really? Maybe he can elucidate and share with us how Kukuiokane Ea is no longer in existence. Really? The state is an excellent steward. Without being speeded up on the land. Those kind of comments are inappropriate when they're not true. The state might try to be an excellent steward, but it needs to try harder. Ask Paulette Kaleki. Ask those descendants whose bones, over 1,000, were unearthed in 1988 in Oklahoma. Ask them. Ask the descendants whose bones were unearthed at Walmart. Ask the descendants whose bones were unearthed at General Growth. Ask the descendants whose bones are being unearthed at Kahuku Plantation Village 5. Ask them what a good steward the state has been. Those comments are not necessary because they're not true. What is true is the Supreme Court suggested shifting amend its rules. We should not follow the advice of the Supreme Court and ask shifting to amend its rules. I pointed them out to you. That's where the discussion should be held. The speaker in support rattled off a list of highways that have already been built. So many, so I don't know if we call Kahekili, because I live at the end of Kahekili, and Hana, because I'm fond of Hana. But in between that was a whole list. It begs the question, if those highways could be built, why can't future highways continue to be built? And if the state requires assistance through administrative rules, why not do what the Supreme Court says? amend the rules. And that's really what's important. We can always pass laws, but this is not necessary. What is necessary, in the state's eyes, on the advice of the Supreme Court, is to have shifting amend its rules. And so that's what they should do. And save us the offensive remarks of Native people about the excellent stewardship of the state of Hawaii on the island of Wow.
Thank you, Madam President, colleagues. I rise in opposition. It was a very interesting discussion thus far. And it is not a black and white issue, but it shows several things. One is that God bless the fact that we have so many lawyers writing so many bills that are so vague. Because anybody can interpret them any way they want. And then when they do, they go to court, they need more lawyers, and then they have appeals, they need more lawyers. I'm a little disappointed, however, to have ethnic divisiveness brought into the argument. Because this is an argument that people of all cultures and all ethnicities here in Hawaii have felt very strongly about. We have unique environmental laws in the state of Hawaii. We've always been proud of them. We've been different from the federal government, and we've stood alone. I too found the statement about the state stewardship most unusual, because first of all, there would have been no state Supreme Court action or ruling had the builders and developers of the rail transit followed the law and done what they were supposed to do in the first place. But they didn't. Secondly, I represent East Honolulu. And an issue emerged a couple months ago in Howe Street, in Aina, where historical sites were allegedly bulldozed down when the state was asked for support. And a historic trail was asked to be kept open. And the state was saying that they're not sure of the historic significance. So that really is a problem. I don't think that that stewardship has been well done either. I think the final thing, however, is if we look to the past and what the state government has done or has not done, it has made a lot of people uneasy. Because we were told in the past, just trust us. And we did, with negative consequences. So I think under the circumstances and with the arguments made, it is the right thing to do to oppose this bill. And Madam President, I request a roll call vote.
Request been made for roll call vote.
Senator Baker? Reservations? Senator Chandler?
No.
Senator Delacruz?
Reservations?
Senator English?
No.
Senator Sparrow? Senator Gabbard? Senator Gualtieri? Senator Green?
No.
Senator Heath?
No.
Senator Ike?
Aye.
Senator Ihara?
No.
Senator Candela? Senator Keith Agaran? Senator Kidani? Senator Kochi? Senator Nishihara? Senator Ruderman?
No.
Senator Shimabukuro?
No.
Senator Sloan?
No.
Senator Solomon?
Yes.
Senator Taniguchi? Senator Thielen?
No.
Senator Tokuda? Senator Wakai?
Yes.
Madam President?
Reservations.
16 ayes, 9 noes.
Senate Bill 1171, House Draft 2, passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report number 18, final reading of House Bill 1203, Conference Draft 1, Committee to the National Guard.
Senate discussion, members.
And you guys can see what's really excellent about how government really works and how important the people are versus how important money, profits, economy, and all those things are. So what we're seeing is what's going to be happening to Hawaiians, what's going to be happening to the future generations of Hawaiians as the Hawaiian community becomes less and less important to the overall economy of the state. The beginning of the year in this building, we were very upset about what is happening to our environment and how our environment was being attacked in order for us to keep the economy of this crazy spiral that is going on in Hawaii, to keep that afloat. They were willing to sacrifice much of our environment. And that was the whole battle over the PLDC. And we had battles over what they were doing with our lands for farming. And we all know that we only have a couple weeks of food left in Hawaii, yet they're willing to sacrifice our best farmlands to bring more and more people. Today we just saw what happens when we put up Hawaiian values that are deep within the Hawaiian community regarding our elders and the bones of our kupuna. And you guys heard the arguments. People who were supporting this bill were embarrassed by the reality and the truth of what this bill was all about. And yet, like good soldiers, the vote was all decided yesterday. So no matter what we say, no matter what the arguments are in the bottom, these things are decided without the voice of the people being heard. All I know is we cannot and we will not give up. Fourth floor, fifth floor, I don't know what floor that governor is on. He's the guy that directed this whole thing today. Him and his DOT department. Took off the face mask and you saw developers and everybody else behind that DOT face mask. Hanabusa said she's not going to run against him. So he feels safe. What we must do next is not just say, okay, we lost you today. We need to go upstairs and confront that man. We need to get involved in politics and the election of that guy. Otherwise, it's going to happen to you, your next generation, and your next generation over and over. We need to get involved in this building. So all of you being here today was really, really good. We had a really good shot at this. But we cannot just come once. So first of all, mahalo nui to everybody who came. Mahalo, mahalo, mahalo. It's not over until it's over, all right? So we're going to have to do whatever we can. Stay on Facebook. Don't trust the regular media. They don't give you any information anyway. Keep in touch with one another. And we'll make the call on when we're going to visit upstairs to try and get him not to sign this horrible bill that was just passed today. You guys all heard. You guys now need to spread the information. You heard firsthand what the arguments were on both sides. Spread the truth. Okay? Spread the truth. And be ready to come back again and fight another day. Right? So, the lady that really started all of this, I like to call her to come up. And we give one heartfelt Mau Mau, unless you want to say something first. And let's leave this building with all of us speaking together about moving together forward, all in one group.
Iku mau mau, iku mau mau, iku hulu hulu, Kalanabao. Ikulanabao.
Anybody else? Has anyone else you guys want to share?
I just want to say as a Native American that this is not an easy process, but we can stand together. Our ancestors are with us, and our kupuna, your kupuna, and our keiki for our future and for the future of this country, these islands here. We can come together and we can make a change. It's in our prophecies. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. And I just hope we all don't give up or give up. We don't give up. Iku mama.
Anybody else? Anything from any legal information? No legal information? Anybody else? Sure, right here.
All right, Dexter.
Something we got to consider, we all know already, right? We are under illegal occupation.
Yeah.
There is no treaty of annexation.
Right.
Hawaiian Kingdom was never ceded.
Correct.
The state of Hawaii does not exist.
Correct.
Their authority, they have none, but we need to be vigilant in that. What we need to do is report them. Report them to the international community. Let the international community know that what they're doing is committing genocide.
Yeah.
They're desecrating our iwi kupuna. So something to consider. Our salvation, in fact, is the restoration of the Kingdom of Hawaii.
Aye.
Otherwise, we will always be dealing with the symptoms.
Aye.
Okay, Kalamai, thank you.
No treaty, no law, no lands. No treaty, no law, no lands. No treaty, no law, no land.
Okay, mahalo everybody. Keep in touch with Facebook. Okay, we're going to ask Office of Foreign Affairs to help us communicate with everybody. And we'll be back all the way upstairs. That's going to be our next step. Okay, aloha and mahalo nui loa.
Hawaiian lands in Hawaiian hands, yeah. Keep Hawaiian lands in Hawaiian hands, yeah. Keep Hawaiian lands in Hawaiian hands, yeah. Keep Hawaiian lands in Hawaiian hands, yeah. Hawaiian say, "Mama, hey, wakaina ikupono." Mama, hey, wakaina ikupono. Mama, hey, wakaina ikupono. Mama.